My child is going to be a senior this year.
I know.
It's
How exciting.
It ain't exciting because they ain't no school.
Yeah, I know, but we can work it out. There'll be no school for this part, but it'll be school for the rest of it.
Yeah, true that. Including like, yes, thank you. Sid is my technical director here. Okay, so we are live, everybody. Thank you for joining the Sanctuary Radio Show. Please give me a minute to share this post with my Goddess page, and then we'll get right to it because it's going to be cool. I have some really cool guests here. I've been looking forward to this since the beginning of summer school. So we are probably on like week 9 or 10 of summer school. So join us. Hey, Janine, thank you for joining us. Give us a second. Please share. Please share. Okay. All right, so we are sharing.
I've shared. We are good to go.
I did as well.
All right, thank you, ladies. So again, I'm Wendi Cherry of the Sanctuary Radio Show, and I am in the middle of summer school. And this is my, hi, sister. Sister Lisa's here. I am the host of the Sanctuary Radio Show, and I've just been having what I'm calling summer school. We're not in the studio anymore. We're at home, and I just decided to let's keep the love going. And so this summer school series was basically my getting some of the stuff out that I was having, the angst and stuff that I was having around COVID, when COVID hit, and wanting to share tools with people that I loved and cared about, friends and family, who I was seeing on all of my social platforms who were in pure hysteria. Mm-hmm. And so I gathered my friends, and they're very wise, different ones, and they all said yes to come on to the summer school to share different things. So think of yourself as a toolkit, and we're just adding more tools to the toolkit because I think the road is finna get a little bumpier.
It is finna.
Rissy and Kat and Evelyn, don't you agree? So I want to introduce my friend here. This is, Evelyn's already getting started. Hey, hey, Sister Shannon. Risikat Okedeyi is the principal, the visionary, the cultural architect of Lilsosocash Productions. And for those of you who read my book, she is Kat from the Red Tent, that little section there. And then I have Evelyn Bandoh, and I met her inside of the Red Tent, Rissy, and she is what she calls, her movement is the mystic genius. And I don't know how much of that you're doing now. You can talk about that, but she has many gifts and she shares lots of great information. And she actually connected me when I was going to Thailand. She actually connected me with a group that I'm still connected with. So welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, Isa. So we have so many people already who are joining us. And so how y'all doing? This is gonna be laid back. So my other summer schools were a little bit more, a little bit more tight. This one, we just letting it all out because I'm tired. Like, I'm tired. So how are y'all feeling just today? Because it's a day by day thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead, Rissy.
So I'm gonna preface this, but I'm probably gonna cuss by the end of the situation. So y'all ready? So the day started off bumpy. I'm not gonna lie. There was some bullshit that we had to deal with, and I was really looking for the lessons. I feel like I've been getting a warning, for a couple of days now about just people and behaviors and understanding how COVID is affecting people's insecurities and their fears and all the things that come with that. And so it started off bumpy, but I have an amazing tribe of goddess women that I roll with. And so being able to talk and engage and really kind of dig deep, like for me, pandemic is shadow work. It's like, let's get in here. Let's see about the parts of you that you need to reframe. And, what are you being triggered by? What does that look like? And how do you deal? So it was bumpy, but then I put on my kimono.
Okay.
And I made some stew, and put on my funky eyeliner, and now it's fantastic.
So see, those are tools that you can use. What about you, Evelyn?
You know, my spirit is fed up. But so you know, I am on the extremes of like, yeah, things are cool and spirit is fed up. And I think it's just part of the process and the purging of what's happening. I think for particularly for the past 3 weeks, definitely a lot of revelations have been happening. I'm seeing my own triggers. You know, I was in therapy on Saturday sobbing like a baby because the therapist pointed out like travel is one of the ways that you are able to cope and shift perspective, and you can't do that. And I broke down and cried for 5 minutes. Like I was mourning. And really just, it's for me, it's a time of self-mastery. When I think about the work have been doing in the world and moving into more deeply, you know, that self-mastery thing is key. And I look at this time as this is the time where you separate and you call out your bullshit. You go within and you do your own work. And you can't be too worried about what's going on all around, because you know, a lot of us people are just walking from their wounds and not their wisdom. And a lot of things are being triggered, and a lot of, you know, little baby demons are coming up and out, and there's a lot of energy that wants to feed on all sorts of stuff. And it's really trying to maintain my equanimity, my centering. You know, if I'm being triggered, what's being triggered? What do I need to sit down and look at? Self-acceptance work. So, okay, I got to accept myself, and then I got to accept everyone else, apparently. I mean, I guess that's how this works, right? And yeah, everything that comes with a paradigm shift on an individual level, a global level, and a universal level. With some tequila in my fruit.
Word. So I feel you on that travel thing, because I have traveled since I was in the 2nd grade and I love it. My mom always encouraged me to just fly. And so now that I can't, I feel trapped. My spirit animal is the butterfly. So I'm always wanting to just go and flutter. And so I haven't even been up 95 North to see my mother, to New Jersey. So I was saying to somebody, I feel like I'm in a glass and I just keep bumping up on Rock Creek Park and bumping up on Silver Spring and bumping up on Springfield, Virginia. Like I can't escape. Yeah. And it has been starting to bother me more than it did in the beginning, of course. So that's something that I'm dealing with for myself, and not, you know, usually in the summertime, Sid is at Camp Grandma, and I'm in like Asia or wherever I'm going, Africa, wherever. And so it's been pretty hard to just kind of be here and have to sit, because I feel like I have been doing this work for a lot of years, and there's always layers. Don't get me wrong. There's always something new that you can find out about yourself. But I've always worked from home for 9 years when I was in corporate America, so that I'm always in the house. So that's why I just feel the need to just go. So I understand that too.
Yeah.
People were excited when 2020 came in.
So excited.
Y'all type in the chat, Adama, Tony, Steven, Hadia, like, what y'all thinking now? Like, nobody feels that way now. But I think people who have been doing this work, we do, because we understand that the universe is self-correcting. Like, it'll throw off the assholes. After a while, they'll turn off. It's self-correcting, and it gives us clearer vision. And I also believe that we're learning things about ourselves and our families and our jobs and things that we wouldn't have paid attention to before, because we were hustling on the Beltway, trying to get across town, take the kids wherever they got to go, tend to the boo, whatever it is that you had to do. And now this has been the force. So I don't say throw it away, because we're learning these lessons.
Yeah, it was interesting, because when the whole New Year's, you know, ritual started or whatever, people are, you excited about 2020 doing vision boards and all of that. I had known the messages that I had gotten, and I'm like, I'm not going to say anything because I'm going to be called a negative Nancy or whatever.
Right.
And really what I was telling a few people who are open to listen is, I don't know if you want to be making any wild goals. I don't know if you want to be really getting yourself too excited, because energetically what's about to happen is it's a huge shift. And I think what tends to happen in when something goes mainstream, like spirituality or whatever it is that people want to focus on always the good and the positive, but everything is duality and polarity and balance.
Absolutely.
And what I've recognized and what I was thinking, this is a time of transition, and how do I say this? You know, the immaturity that sometimes happen with spiritual knowledge and excitement is that we're always saying something is going to be good. We're going through this and it's going to be good. Well, no, there's no saying what it's going to be. It's going to be what it needs to be in order to get you to where you need to go. And there is no rule, hard and fast, in this universe that says if we go through all this pain and suffering that we're going to come out the other side rainbows and roses, because our free will in terms of how we go through all of this is going to dictate what we end up with. And I'll just leave it there. So I was like, 2020 is going to be the year of vision, but it's going to come in hindsight.
Wow.
I got fooled. I was bamboozled. I was super excited. Because 2020 came in for me very like, let's chop away all the nonsense. And so people were falling off. I was saying no to a bunch of things. I was like, yo, this is how it's going to be. And it was feeling really good. But I will say this, I was in Nigeria at the beginning of December. And I remember listening to the news report in the hotel about COVID. They were saying that, you know, Wuhan, something had happened, and it started in November. And Spirit was like, that's a lie. It probably started in October. And then there was a sense like, get ready. Didn't understand, you know, what that actually meant, but just knew that I was getting this inkling, like, we need to get ready. Could not have imagined that this is what things were going to look like. But I do think, again, this is, so in a lot of different practices, there's this term called the shadow self. Everyone has one. You know, there's who you are, and then there's that part of yourself that remains hidden that, you know, you may touch or, you know, engaging with or not. But shadow work is a practice where you look at that dark self and you start to figure out what parts of that self are actually affecting your waking life. And I think that this is a great time for shadow work. You can't go anywhere, you can't do shit, so you might as well spend some time trying to figure out what makes you tick. What are the things that are unresolved? What are the pains that have not been, you know, healed? You know, this, if you come out of COVID the same person, then you really have wasted the time. I do think this is a Control-Alt-Delete. I do think that a lot of us, whether we are conscious about it or not, have collectively been complaining about our existence for quite some time. We hate the running. We hate that we don't get to spend time with our families. We hate that we are limited in terms of how much money we make and how far we can go in our resources. And I think, you know, the universe has been hearing a bunch of complaints. So its response is, all right, shit, we're going to shut the whole thing down.
Right.
All these systems that you people are complaining about, let's just shut them down. And so that way you can see the lay of the land. And hopefully what people are realizing is that these systems that we put so much faith and trust in, we realize that they're trash. Like they don't serve us the way we think they do. Yeah. And so this is an opportunity, which I'm excited about. I'm an eternal optimist in a lot of ways. I think this is a great opportunity to reinvent whoever you want to be for the next phase of your life. And I think if you have not sat down to think about that yet, that's cool, because we're going to be here a little bit longer. Like, unfortunately, this second wave is not going to play. So even if you think, oh, okay, I've wasted, no, you haven't wasted anything. You might have just been getting ready. Like I told someone recently, we're at the beginning of the middle. So it's going to hurt. It's not going to be fun. It's going to absolutely suck. But if you put it in perspective that shadow work is not fun. There's nothing fun about finding out about the dark parts of you that are self-sabotaging or fearful or jealous. Like that's not fun. But if you can do the work, if you can keep the pace and do the work, a lot of the stuff that comes out of it, the creativity, the truth, the realness, the relationships, everything is better. Everything is so much better. So I would just urge everyone to strap in, because it's about to be, we just getting started. We're just at the beginning of the middle.
And wear your damn mask.
You wear your damn mask.
Wear your mask. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting because I was taking Sydney to Five Below yesterday. She's become a protege of an interior designer. We have all this whole section of sage, incense. It's like commodified spirituality or whatever you call it. And so she's like, well, mommy, I saw on TikTok where I need to have this and this. So I wouldn't let her get any of it unless she could tell me what it was and what it was for. And then I also said, this is how they market to you and make money. They have a whole section of COVID where they got gloves, paper towels, sanitizer and stuff like that in a section. I said, see how they have normalized this and now they're getting money from you. Right. So, you know, it's out there, but you just have to be careful. And then the shadow work is interesting for me because I feel like I have suppressed my shadow for so long because I was always the goody two shoes, pain in the butt, right, do everything by the rules. And just in the last few years, I have like shed that as much as I have decolonized my brain of all these things, or I'm trying, but I'm also turning 50. And every 7 years you get a new body. This is my 49th year. I'll be 50 in 3 months. And no, I was trying to be in Brazil on the 50th. I was not trying to be in my condo here. Right. But that shadow part is I'm allowing myself to be the harmonized person, because I don't even know about balance, but what is in harmony for me is to not always be the goody two shoes who's going to let you say whatever you want to say and let you get away with stuff. So there's more clapbacks that are coming from me. Right. There's less of I'm just standing more into my own power. Right. Is what it is. And the shadow part that I have suppressed is now coming out. And so I'll have to learn how to calibrate it and make sure that it's in harmony so that I don't get myself in trouble. But you know, it does feel good to be able to be like, F that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to, you know, I don't pretty much have to do too much of what anybody else says. I can pretty much do what I want to do and stand in what I believe and what I think is authentic. Now, Adama says 2020 was the year of hold my beer. Hey, Adama. And my god sister Jordan is here. Hey, Jordan. So we were, this is what we're calling the State of the Union. So we're just I'm gonna get your first thoughts on some of the things that are happening, because we were talking via email and a few texts, and it's like shit can get crazier by next week. Yes. So let's just hold on what we're gonna talk about, because anything is possible. Right. So what do you all think about? So Evelyn posts lots of really interesting and nuanced information about finances and about all types of things. And so sometimes I look at her page and I don't know what she's talking about, but it gives me like a planted seed, and then I can go and kind of like figure out what she's talking about, or then it'll come into my, you know, like if you see something and then it's like synchronicity, it all starts to just come. Right. So she talked about the devaluing of currency. And it might be a weird place to start, but this is, again, one of those things that is just happening and you might not be paying attention. But how many of you with a thumbs up or a heart have been to the store recently and seen that they don't have any change and that they're not using paper dollars anymore? Right. And they're like talking about there's a shortage. So we went, Sydney went shopping yesterday with her little new mall money, and they told her they didn't have any change. Now it was only 20 cents, but I said, Sydney, she was like, it says 20 cents, Mom. I'm like, but Sydney, that's how they ganking everybody. They got it in the drawer, but they don't tell everybody. So now how much, what if it's 20 cents for the 500 people who came into the store that day who they didn't give their change? Right. So Evelyn, that's just a small part of it, but what does it mean? What do you think we have to look forward to with our currency? We can cash app and we can do all those things, but what does that mean if the government is going to devalue our currency, and what does that look like for the lay people?
So where to start? So what's happening? So in the United States and really around the world, you have a central bank, which may or may not be a government agency. And their whole thing is to manage the economy, right? Capitalism requires management of the system through what's called monetary policy or fiscal policy. So what's been happening? You have to pay attention, particularly in the US, to what's been happening from when they did the first bank bailout at the top of the year, where $2.3 trillion disappeared into the fucking sky and nobody knew where anything was going. But then people were mad because people were walking out of Target with a lamp, right? Mm-hmm. So you have airlines that got bailout money, big banks that got bailout money, and nobody can account for where any of that went. Yeah. And then you had the what was it, CARES Act or whatever. So that first COVID act where they gave people $1,200 plus whatever per kid. And there was another pot of money that disappeared into the corporate ethers. Small businesses weren't able to get what they needed because all these corporate chains were getting what they needed. So what's happening is, like, I think if we looked at the balance sheet of the United States of America, you would see that we are bankrupt. And there's something called the FOMC, the Federal Overnight Market Rate or something like that. And that's basically the rate that the Treasury lends to other banks in terms of having cash because banks have specific cash reserves that they have to keep, right? So a bank works by when you put your money in the bank, they take your money that you deposit and they lend it to others and they charge interest. The interest is how banks make money. So the more deposit accounts they have, the more high yield accounts they have, the more cash they have to lend. And because of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and the rules that came out of the New Deal after the stock market crashes and all that other type of stuff and the savings and loan crisis in the 80s, there are rules about how much money a bank has to have in reserves to cover the amount of consumer deposits they have. And so if a bank is going to fall below a threshold, they borrow money from the feds to cover their reserve. Now, also this rate, if I'm remembering it correctly, is used to talk about like your rates for your bonds. It's the market rate for which all the adjustable interest rates are based. So it's called, your prime rate. So if your prime rate is 3%, like think about your credit card, you might have an interest rate of 10%, which means your prime is 3, which means the gap in which the bank is making money is the 7%. If the prime rate is 0, or the government has to lower the interest rate to a negative interest rate, at some point, right, there is no desire for the banks to lend because they're not making as much money. So they're holding on to cash. And so one method to deal with, inflation or not having enough money circulating in the economy is you lower the value of the currency so that people have to physically put more cash. So you physically have to use more money to buy what you need. So if you had to, a gallon of milk might have cost $5, right? And then 2 weeks later, it's 7, right? So you have all these manipulations of currencies that start to happen. Long story short is that what you want to pay attention to is at some point, if we're not mindful of what our government is doing and what's happening on the back end and where this money is going, the money that you have is not going to go as far as you need it to go. And then if you want to get really deep into the woods about this authoritarian dictatorship that we're leaning into, you want to control the populace, you control the money. You want to control people's ability to move, you control how much their money is worth. You want to instill fear in people, you devalue the currency. If you want to know how that works, you can look at India, where they got rid of all their small bills and the prime completely, trashed the economy because they instituted new values of their rupees or whatever it was. Right? So you want to manipulate things, you manipulate the cash currency, you manipulate how much is rotating into the system, you manipulate what something is worth. So if you have $5,000 of debt at a specific interest rate, and you have $5,000 in cash, what you thought was worth $5,000, if there was ever some type of devaluation, your 5,000 could be 4,000, could be 3,000, and now you're at this deficit. I am not saying that that could happen. It might happen. I don't know. I think that particularly with this administration and with the back dealing and with everything that has been happening, you want to be mindful of that, because our dollar is not backed by gold. It hasn't been backed by gold for a long time.
1971.
Yeah, we're on a fiat system, which is why if you're paying attention to the markets, people are quietly buying gold fractionals, gold shares. They're investing in commodities. They're trying to control water. Yeah, it's all sorts of stuff. So
should we be going to the bank, get our money out and put it in under our mattress? Like what should we be doing?
Not
like but I'm just saying, like, I'm sure people are like, what the heck?
I think you got to pay attention. And really, even if you got your money and you put it under the mattress, it's not going to necessarily help you. Right. Really, it's the rats that have taken over 1600, we have to collectively work to get them all out. And even if there is a blessed change come November 3rd, understand that there has been so much installation of criminality all throughout the US bureaucracy that whoever gets into office is going to spend 4 years trying to clean it up. And no one ever wants to talk about how the fact Russia took over the US Treasury in 2015. And there's a whole article series on BuzzFeed about that. And there's all these things that have been happening, which is also why I say I don't think a Black woman needs to be the vice president, because it's a setup. But that's another story for another day.
Oh, okay. Rissy, why are you clapping? I'm pretty sure a lot of the people who are here watching, I see the names, would be hyped about that. Why did you clap like that?
Because I am super tired of, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. Bill Biden gets a Black VP. People are excited. This woman has skill set. She probably got more degrees than his ass, hella smarter than him. I don't think the man is gonna make it through the first term. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that he will get in, which will be good to get, Rancid Fanta out. But then say at some point he decides I'm gonna retire, Black woman comes in, she will clean up the whole thing. She will make the shit sparkle and shine. The US will, if she's allowed to do her best work, she will put this place right back where it needs to be. And then when the time comes for re-election, she'll be told, I don't think people are ready for a Black woman president, even though they just had one. Right. And I don't think she'll be appreciated in the way that she should. I personally am tired of Black women. Black women are able to tell you this is not a good idea. Y'all didn't listen to us when we were like, do not vote for this man. He's crazy. So the idea that you would bring a Black woman in to be your cleanup artist.
Cleanup, right.
That's to me, that's what it feels like. You would be bringing her in because you're taking a really intelligent, amazing person out of circulation to bring her into a space where she may not be able to fully activate all of her skill set. Because let's be honest, the vice president's role is basically, he's the backup. Right. So if she ends up becoming president through this way, it's cute. I'm happy. We got a Black woman president. That's fine. But the idea that when it's time to be reelected, that there could potentially be issues just because this country has proven that it cannot stomach, for whatever reason, competent people at the helm, it would just be a huge slap in the face. Yeah. And I think about, the amount of aging these roles do to people, the way that people, if you're going to take this on, what you are agreeing to is to basically be kind of the shield. Yeah. And I just don't want a Black woman in that position, particularly at a time where this country has said time and time and time again, it does not give a shit about Black women. Right. That we're only good, that you only listen to Black women after shit is all jacked up. We tried to tell you not to do stuff because we know what's going to happen. You don't listen to us. You only want us to clean up. And there's a part of me that's very uncomfortable with a Black woman coming into that space and being a cleanup woman.
Yep, that's what my brain was saying. She's just the cleanup woman. That's what she would be.
Right, and
we have always been.
Right. And here's the thing that I really want to hone in for people is that we have an election on November 3rd. It's probably going to be contested. But there's a transition period that also happens, right? And transitions are highly political. They are highly orchestrated. They are highly intense. And it requires the current administration to really set up the incoming administration and laying things bare on the line. If we are able to have a shift in administrations, what do you think that the incoming transition team is coming into? They're going to come into shit. They're going to come into bodies. They're coming into lies. Anyone who takes the helm, they will not be able to have an agenda of improvement in the United States. They will be stabilizing things. They will have to smoke out every single fucking rat that was input in the bureaucracy. And in 2016, when this started happening and I started looking at the secretarial appointments, I said, this man is placing people as federal agency secretaries who are going to dismantle and destabilize all of these agencies. The entire social agenda of the United States went outside of the window. If you look at what's going on with HHS, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, EPA, USDA, Commerce, you look at all these agencies that deal with the social fabric of the United States, and education, they've all been weakened to a point that it's not even funny. And you mean to tell me that you want to put somebody in there who, and then they're, not only do they have to clean up the nonsense, you will be mad at them because they cannot uphold your social justice agenda, because they're trying to keep this country from fucking drowning into a pit of hell. Mm-hmm. Because it is a setup. When I tell you it's a setup, it is a setup. So the people who broke it, let their counterparts come in and plug the holes. And then we got next.
Okay. Now, what do you think about that? What do you think about Kanye and his whole antics over the last, since we're talking presidential situations here, what did you all think about him or not?
Someone just needs to swaddle him and, give him a hug. I think we need to stop with the excuse of his mama. Rest her spirit. Part of this thing is we don't like to encourage people to take responsibility for how they show up in the world. Americans in particular, it is my viewpoint that we really have very interesting relationships with narcissistic codependency. I wonder if we like being abused sometimes because of the things that we accept.
Right.
And, bless him, bless his spirit. I don't think you put energy into it and take it seriously, because he has got some other things going on and he needs whatever support he's going to get. I just, in the grand scheme of things, I saw it and I went back to watching Indian matchmaking.
So when the initial announcement came out, I posted I don't remember where I posted, but I said, we need to treat this like the uncle at the cookout who always comes. He never brings anything. He leaves with 2 plates. And if you start talking to him, he's going to start talking shit. So you just ignore him. That's really how I feel. The antics around his appearance in wherever it was, South Carolina or whatever, some of the things that he's saying, the breakdown, like, I'm actually done this is going to sound terrible, but I have no sympathy for this man. I really don't. He has resources. If he wants to use them, he can use them.
Yeah.
He has resources. It's what he's a man child who's been coddled, that whole love your sons, raise your daughters thing. And he's been allowed to behave this way because he can make some beats and he can rhyme a little. And so he keeps getting passes. Y'all still haven't forgiven Chrisette Michele for singing at Trump's inauguration. This man said that slavery was a choice. This man went on a whole, tangent selling Comic Sans, in lettered sweatpants for $250, and nobody said anything. But a Black woman sang at the inauguration, and y'all still haven't let that woman live that down. And so for me, Kanye is just, he irks the dog shit out of me. I resent how he is allowed to, do all of these antics. He has said across time, he has said some really terrible things. He's misogynistic as hell. I don't think he cares or loves Black women outside of his mama. And so for me, my thing is, why should I?
Right.
The danger, though, is that there is this love of a spectacle, particularly when Black people are kirking out, particularly when Black men are losing their shit. The press loves this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's a hard thing to get around, because he knows that it's him showing up at a rally and doing whatever, people are going to come. He apologized to some white person that he yelled at, but didn't apologize to the Black woman that he yelled at. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so there are all of these things that, as a Black woman, I'm watching, like, why are we giving this guy energy? Like, right now, in the midst of all of the things that are happening, we are sitting here giving this guy energy. For what reason? Some people, I went to the rally just to laugh. That's not a good use of your time and your energy. That sends a really strong message to narcissistic idiot that this man is, that no matter how ridiculous what I'm saying, these people will follow me. It's no different than when Trump said the nonsense about how you could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't get arrested. That mentality is dangerous. We've seen what it looks like. And here we are still giving this idiot like oxygen. Like, I just want him to go get the help that he needs. And if he doesn't want it, fine, but just keep quiet, because it's a distraction that we just don't need. We really don't. And for me, it's not even about the political aspect. It's just about, this man has constantly disrespected the Black community. Why do we keep giving him chances? Sometimes you just got to cut your losses and keep it pushing.
Agreed.
And that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, what do you all think about the unemployment being canceled today? Like, I'm a gig worker. So as soon as COVID started, well, as soon as the new year started, I was on a book tour and I was creating my business, and it was just starting to get momentum. And then the week of, when Rissy and I were supposed to be at the Kennedy Center, they shut that shit down. And so here I was with 150 books in my trunk. Right. And everything halted. So what are you all thinking about that? To me, I feel like these white men are making decisions on people that, well, they don't care. It's clear that they don't care, but it's just really interesting to listen to their language. We don't want to throw money at the problem. When they gave Kodak yesterday like $758 million to start doing some medical testing or whatever. So, do you all have any thoughts about that at all? The unemployment, and whether you think they'll reinstate it or whatever?
Yeah, so where to start? This is a part of the criminal cabal that we're living in. This is capitalism, right? So let's talk about minimum wage for a minute. These motherfuckers have always known that you need at least, the data suggests that in the United States, there is nowhere that you can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for a family of 4 for less than $22.67 an hour working one full-time job. That's what we call the housing wage, right? And I'm talking places in Arkansas and the deep South and that are not the coast. On the coast, the average is $37 and some odd cents. DC, New York, California, okay? So they've always known that minimum wage has not ever been enough. And they know that because when they decided to give the extra $600 supplement, it was calculated on what? A minimum wage of 20-something dollars an hour. So they've known, and they have always known, they don't fucking care, because capitalism requires low cost labor in order to maximize profits, okay? When you look at the economic curve, profit goes like this. This is your supply line, your demand line, and you want to be above the little line over here to be making profit. What they don't tell you is that you're not always supposed to be at maximum profit, because the system cannot maintain that. The structure cannot maintain that. So we manipulate the system in order to maximize profits all the time. And if the system of slavery has not taught us anything, it should teach us all that labor is the most expensive, but the easiest category to manipulate your profits, because what do? You either make it free or you keep it at a below a certain point so people cannot have economic mobility. Okay. And so they don't want people sitting at home actually having economic mobility, because when you're not stressed out about money, when you're not stressed out about how you're going to pay your bills, when you can actually afford to eat better, okay, when you can afford to think, then you're going to start to question, well, what the fuck is this?
Right. True that.
You know, how come I don't have a quality grocery store in my neighborhood? How come, you know, my kid is eating, you know, processed cheese for lunch? You know, how come I don't have health insurance? Or I have health insurance, but I still have a premium that unless I get sick, it's not going to happen. How come? So when you look at the fact that our policy system is run by lobbyists and big money, okay, this is not something that's governed by the people. And people really need to look at the Democrats in Congress, because they have failed us. And I'll go on record and say that. People like Pelosi. I'm like, Pelosi, where? Because all this legislation, why are we arguing about $1,200? They couldn't even get it out in time. So you ended the unemployment because you want to create a purposeful stress that forces people to go back into labor so they don't get poor. Because we also have value and virtue signaling in this country about what it means to be poor, what it means to be impoverished. We don't talk about how scarcity is baked into the system, and that there is a virtue signaling around the worst thing that you can be is poor. Not even a child molester or a pedophile gets treated as bad as somebody who is poor. So they don't want people to awaken and get clear about some things, because if they do, this entire system, as it is doing regardless of what they do, will come crashing and burning down. Let it burn.
So you're talking about awakening, and a lot of people are awakening. So first, here's some of the comments. My cousin Brandon is like, they never really failed us because they were never constructed to help us begin. And the funniest comment that I saw, which was earlier, was Amina saying, look at my faves looking like whole, self-actualized, powerful, magical snacks. So yes, it's not set up for us, and we're talking about awakening. And right. You're right. When people have an opportunity to sit with themselves, like what's happening now, eat better, maybe calm their parasympathetic nervous system down a little bit, then they start to question stuff. And so just like in Five Below, where I saw all of those spiritual things, it was a lot about manifesting. So you did a post about manifesting. What did you say? Because it was really interesting. Just you could explain it way better than me.
What did I say? I think I said something about one day we're going to have a conversation about how the new age version of manifestation has been weaponized and is nothing but prosperity gospel in new age or something along those lines.
That's what you said. And I want to have you unpack that a little bit, because as people are awakening, a lot of people are awakening, and they are being bombarded with all these different things that are happening, and it's painful. It's painful to awaken. You ever just wake up real fast and then you get a headache and then you don't feel good for a minute and you're off balance? That's what happens in real life. And there's a funny meme where this little baby girl is throwing up in the toilet and somebody's holding her hair. And then that's the person is like, that's me holding my friends who are just waking up, holding their hair because they're in the toilet. Like, this is some real shit right here.
Right.
So manifestation is like the new buzzword.
Yeah. So I'm writing an essay about it. And there's a particular phrase that I'm using that I'm not going to say yet until I publish this essay.
Yes.
And essentially, if all you're manifesting are tools of the current oppressive system, then you have to think about what framework and what lens you are coming from. My challenge with New Age spirituality, it is weaponized and it is dangerous, because all white supremacists have done is left Christianity, which was highly structured, cast them in sin, cast them in stone, and went over to the extreme other side that says you can have everything that you want if you think hard enough. And if you don't have it, it's because you brought it onto yourself. You were sexually assaulted, you attracted that, you manifested that. And when I say weaponize, if you're calling yourself spiritual and you are not speaking to the socioeconomic conditions in which people have had their free will taken from them, if you are not speaking to the oppressive systems that have kept people from accessing their divinity on purpose, then you are an agent of the original demons. And we can fight on that. When you are talking about manifestation and your only thing is about manifesting more money, more riches, more fame, more clout, along with this notion of you can have anything that you want, it becomes dangerous, because what if what you want is not good for you, or
Right.
not in your for your highest good, or if what you want takes something that belongs rightfully to somebody else, right? Money, that's a whole other conversation about money, and it's money has energy. No, money, the only energy money has is the energy that we give it. The
Yeah.
minute that someone says that money has no value, it has no value. The universe gave us exchange as value, right? So if all you're talking about with manifesting is some tangible physical asset that you got in order to show it off, to show that you're good and that you're righteous, there's an opportunity for growth. The deeper teachings around manifestations are manifesting things for your highest good and manifesting things that are within your destiny, right? Yep. And being clear about what you ask for. So yeah, okay, you need to pay your bill, you need to call some money for what you need, fine. And a level of mastery then is getting clear about, how do I manifest a life that is aligned? How do I work on my alignment so the things that I need to support my destiny have a pathway to come? So I'm not always panic manifesting money, or panic manifesting being a millionaire or a billionaire, and inadvertently or purposefully perpetuating the same paradigms and narratives and systems that we are trying to get out of. The law of attraction, all these universal laws, if it does not apply to everybody unambiguously, then you have to question where it comes from. And a lot of this doctrine around manifestation, who wrote, was it Science of Mind? Was it Joseph Campbell? Was one of those authors. They were a marketer. They were a marketer who, I think I read, ended up dying broke. Okay, so you have to go deeper into where these teachings are coming from and who's teaching them and what for. We like money. We get attracted by money. We all want more of it. We need it because the system has said, you need it to have some value for yourself. Yeah. But when we start telling people you don't have what you need because you brought it on yourself, or you're poor because you want to be poor, you're weaponizing and you're not nuanced about it. It could be behavior, but you also have to look at the systemic conditioning that keeps things happening perpetually. And you also have to look at, if you have been able to gather riches for yourself or whatever it is, who did you step on to get there? Did you do it in full integrity? And did you manifest fully what was yours to manifest? Because the imbalance is part of the problem. And that's that.
So, Rissy, I want to ask you this, because I learned a lot as far as elevating my spirituality through some of the red tent classes and other things that you offered and other gatherings you offered. So if Evelyn is talking about the notion of manifesting and just being careful on, what your intentions are around those things, and how you get it and what you're going to do with it. What are some tips that you can share to be able to trust your own divinity? Because I think a lot of people have been so brainwashed to trust something outside of themselves, that in this awakening, they're also beginning to hear that they have the power,
right,
and that they are powerful beings. So what are some of the tools that they can use? Or like, if they're brand new at this, just starting to awaken, even since COVID in March, what can they do?
So there's a couple things. One of the basic principles of my spiritual practice is the law of three. Whatever I put out comes back times three. And that is a great way to balance out how you throw shit out in the world. People, we say things all the time. And a lot of us, our power is it's in different modalities. Like my power is in talking. Like when I speak, things happen. And I understand now that that's my power. So part of what you do is you have to kind of set some ground rules. People just come in this all willy-nilly, burning sage and getting cards and, you know, wearing ox, and they don't understand that a lot of this stuff has meaning. And if you're not really clear about its meaning, you using sage or throwing around onks may or may not affect you in a way that's positive or negative. So part of what you do first is you set a guideline for how you will practice and how you will walk in the world. My guideline, my guiding principle is whatever I put out comes back times 3. So whenever I have to make a decision, whether it's to be grimy or not be grimy, or to be petty or not be petty, it's really about thinking, do I want this coming back to me times 3?
Yeah.
And that helps me first and foremost before I open my mouth or say something or do something. It's a check and balance, because the problem, you know, in the, especially what I love about Evelyn is her mind is freaking amazing. But what she just said is really important, because what has happened is the Puritanism and the conservative aspect of church that says you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. People have now come to the so-called spiritual side, and now they're wilding out, because the idea is that, or the belief is that there are no rules.
Right.
And that's not true. There are rules. And one of the rules for me is, if you put it out there, some people believe it's times 7. I believe it's times 3. The other piece is that when it comes to energy or magic, or however you want to use that word, you cannot pull from something without it being replaced. When you take from something, that energy has to be replaced somewhere else. That's what the balance is. So if you pray for money and you're not specific, the money could come because, you know, your son stole something and pawned it off because you needed to pay the electric bill, or it could come because somebody died and you inherited something. So part of it is you need guiding principles. Like, just because you divest yourself of Jesus does not mean you should divest yourself of good sense and, you know, some clarifying markers. So, you know, having some ground rules around that. The other piece is really, you have to decolonize your spiritual practice.
Yeah.
And that is something that takes a lot of work, because even if you are not particularly religious, if you grow up in this country, you have been bombarded with an inherent sense of anti-Blackness that you have to fight every day, regardless of who you are.
Okay.
So you have to understand that to be in America, to live in America, is to be brainwashed into believing that Black is negative, that Black is ugly, that Black is less than, that Black is thief, laborer, all of these things. And it can never be more than that. And so when you decolonize your spiritual practice, what you have to do is be willing to see the divinity in yourself. And when you think about Western religion, the divinity doesn't show up looking like this. No. So one of the first things you have to do is believe that God, the goddess, the universe, spirit lives in you, that you are an embodiment of that. And when that part clicks, when that part makes sense, then what happens is you understand the power that you have. And then you have to decide how you're going to wield that power. You know, the society that we live in will say those of us who look like this don't have any real power. So we have to snatch it, we have to fight it, we have to take it, and all of these. And in my practice, I am God. So
right.
You know, how I roll, I have to be careful with my power. I have to be respectful of other people who are, because everybody, if we all have divinity in us, then no one is better than the other.
Right.
And this system is based on a hierarchy that wants to say you are less than this, that, and the third. And so we have to be careful about that and be comfortable identifying the divinity that lives within us first, because that's a very scary prospect. When you've grown up on Jesus, it's hard to see yourself in a space where you actually are of the divine. I mean, you know, even in the way that Christianity works, the women are treated like second-class citizens, even though everybody comes from a woman. Like they're not exalted in the same way, which doesn't make any sense to me, you know? And so we have to first have some guiding principles. You have to decide if you're recalibrating your world and you're moving into a spiritual space, there are lots of systems that all lead back to one source.
Yeah.
that you can look to for guidance. But this idea that to be spiritual means you can just go out here and do whatever you want and there are no consequences, that is absolutely not true. There are rules to the system. This is a system. What you put in, you have to replace. You can't just be out here giving and giving and giving and not taking, because the lack of reciprocity clogs up the energy chain. And so, you know, having that guiding principle, being clear and being comfortable with decolonizing how you see divinity and who's allowed to be divine is part of it. Because if you can acknowledge that the divine rests in women and men, then it makes it harder for you to treat women the way we treat women. You know, the other piece is that if you are serious about whatever this path is, whatever you choose, you have to understand that some of the shit that you used to do, you can't do anymore. You can't really be about this spiritual life if you think it's okay to like drown cats or like yell at people or fire people because you can, or steal from people. Like, you have to balance out your earth plane existence with whatever that spiritual aspiration is. Because, you know, there are movies and all this other stuff that are out there and people are excited because, you know, now we have, you know, all of these great images around witchcraft and spirituality, but they don't understand this is a really serious business. You can't just be out here willy-nilly doing all kinds of things. And the other piece about this is that you have to understand that each person walks with their own set of people.
Right.
So when you come out of your mouth or you try to do strangeness to folks, you don't know who their people are. And you don't know how their people are going to respond to some of the behavior that you're responding to, which is why for me, the law of three is a very helpful way to keep, you know, my anger or my irritation in check. Because before I launch something out there, my question is, do I want that coming back to me? And the other part of that question is, who are their people? Because if their people are not for the nonsense, then they, you know, there's a lot that I have to deal with on top of that. Yeah. And I've seen what happens when people go after folks or, you know, are flippant or disrespectful with people who, you know, are walking on that higher plane. What comes back for them is not cute. So I think you have to decide, you can't treat spiritual like a catch-all. And I think what Evelyn is saying is part of that weaponization is this idea that you as a white person can go to whatever, you know, faraway land, learn from this brown person or this black person, come back with that knowledge, repackage it into some sort of marketing scheme and sell it to people, where you basically are not giving them the full set of tools. You can't tell someone that you're responsible for everything that's happened to you and not give them the tools to understand that, no, you're actually not in this alone. There's a whole energetic system that you can access to help you through this. So now you're sitting here blaming yourself for all of these things, and it's creating more, it's just creating more of a cycle of lack. And you, before you know it, you got all the beads and you know, you got all the tools and you got the look and all of this, but you still mad.
Right. Right. When I do my classes, I teach people to, if they want to incorporate a lot of the additional, like the crystals and the sage and all that, if they want to incorporate all those things, that's fine, but get to know your own technology first, because you are the technology.
Right.
Oh my goodness, my phone is ringing.
It's a cosign.
Yeah, use your own technology. You are the original technology.
I love it.
What I wanted to ask Rissy is that what about those, especially African-American women who are tapping into African, you know, centered
Somebody
religion?
wants to talk to you.
Sorry, that's the front desk. Sorry, they must be a package or something.
Rest, child.
So what about African-American women, you know, who have been here for generations, who are now, like you said, attempting to decolonize their spirituality? Because there's lots of comments here. We got Dana, Christina Joy Morgan, who says, wow, you have to decolonize your spiritual experience. And then Adama says, God is twice removed for her in the Western concept. And so, and then Isa says, I feel like what she is saying is exactly what happened with yoga in the West. We forgot that yoga is a part of a whole belief system.
Yep.
So my sister Cher actually is a yogi, and she centers the original, what we know is the original, because there's also Kemetic and there's, you know, what we know as the Eastern religion
The
or the
Hindu
Eastern
base.
practice.
Right.
So she's very clear on that, but a lot of times, you know, you just don't see that. So for the African-American woman who's been here, who is now like, oh, I don't go to church anymore, I'm going to yoga on Sundays, right? And they see the blonde haired lady in there because they don't know any different.
Right.
What can you share with us who are just starting to delve into or want to learn more about African principles? And you and Evelyn share about African-centered religions and some of the deities, because, you know, like Beyonce is, are y'all watching her Black is King on Friday with this whole, I know, I know, with her, you know, like, I think that is what some people's concept of her beehive are now being open to African spirituality through her. So what can you share to help ground that and to help give people the opportunity to do it in a more impactful and authentic way?
So the first thing I will say is Africa is still not a country. And so we have to, right, we have to be specific about what we're talking about. You know, Ifa is a tradition that is well known within the Nigerian space, and from that you get Santeria and Lukumi. You have Palo, you have Voodoo, you have all kinds of systems that were created by Black people. We live in an age where, for the first time in human history, we have access to information in something as small as a phone. We can actually research all of the things that we want to know in terms of trying to understand these systems. And it's not a quick fix, right? So part of the, you know, I am Nigerian American. I'm first generation American. Ifa is something that I have explored. It is not something that I have necessarily initiated into, but it is something that I have explored. And what I have found across the board when we talk about these systems is there's two things that we need to be mindful of. These systems are very old and they're very nuanced. And oftentimes, like with any system, you have to be careful of the people that teach or come through these systems.
Still human beings.
Human beings that are still human. And that, you know, what practicing Ifa looks like in Nigeria and you know, a specific part may be different than what happens in Philadelphia. So you have to put it in context around who is transmitting this information and what that looks like to you. It's still a system though. You can divest of Jesus and go somewhere else for sure. But, you know, when you leave the church and you decide to go to Santeria, or you leave the church and you decide to go to Voodoo, you are still going to be part of a system. There are practices, there are rules, there are guidelines. You know, they are, yes, different. And the practitioners hopefully are Black and look like you, but you are still, there are still expectations and rules in terms of how things should go. Like, you don't lose that there, otherwise it'd be chaos. You do have to have a certain set of guidelines that everybody's sort of going by, but there are nuances. And I think that it's a tricky fish because I haven't read all the books, but I think what I have learned for me is honing in on that intuition and your instinct, that gut instinct. That's what you use to drive your journey. So if you are just, I'm tired of Jesus, I don't want to do this anymore, or even I'm tired of Allah, I don't want to be Muslim anymore, and you decide that you want to go and look at other places and other things, that is absolutely fine. But if you don't have an internal compass that can at least warn you when things are not right, even if you don't know why, you can be taken advantage of. There are a lot of communities, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this is probably gonna piss some people off, but there are a lot of communities who are practicing African traditions, and these folks are taking people's money. They're preying on people who are desperate for something different. They're taking advantage of that desperation and basically enslaving folks into a whole nother system that's not serving them. So you have to hone your own internal understanding of yourself. Everyone has a place in their body where when somebody's lying, you feel it. So part of what you do for me is really about, before you begin to sort of put yourself out there, I'm interested in some, interested in that, do your research. Check in with yourself. Like, play around, like do an intuition game where take a day, put your mask on and go outside and talk to spirit and say, like, you know what, I want to go on an adventure, take me through, like, I'm going to trust you, I'm going to let you guide me. And wherever you feel like you must go, make a right, make a left, like, don't use your map, just go and see where you end up, because the practice itself is about wonderment. It's about not thinking you know every damn thing, but it's also about taking joy in those small moments that happen when you really pay attention. So regardless of the practice, if you are not secure in your internal compass, this is how people get hemmed up. And I've seen examples of this where people are like, I don't mess with that EFA stuff because da. Like, I get it. You didn't have good teachers. But when I met the person that you're talking about, I could have told you that they were off. Look at the way they keep their house. That should have been assigned to you that they're off. So you can't give up the parts of yourself that you've honed in terms of your internal compass just because you've divested of Jesus. And I think that for me is the biggest message I would love to put out there. You're shifting your mindset. It's a shift. It's a transition. It is not something that can happen like this. And it's something that requires you to be cognizant of you got to be observant. You can't just be out here jumping into something just because it looks pretty.
Right.
This whole idea around the performative aesthetic is what gets people in trouble. You see that person with the beads and the ankh and the bindis and all of this stuff and the henna, you're like, oh, she's spiritual. She might not be spiritual.
I can tell you some of these Instagram witches gonna get y'all killed, but that's another conversation.
But it's true, the aesthetics are taking too much of a lead, because the real work, the real spiritual work is not pretty.
Yeah,
it's not pretty. When you have to sit there with you and your God and yourself and your shadow self, and y'all all looking at each other, it's not nose, tear crying. It's, I need to cut my hair off. It's, oh my God, I got to go sit in this bath and deal with myself. It's not pretty. And the problem is that we're so caught up in the aesthetics of what we think is happening that we don't understand. Adama Grace said something that was one of the most powerful things I ever heard. And I will never forget it, because it really changed how I thought about Christianity. She said, I am not a Christian, I'm a follower of Christ. And when you take Christ out of the construct of Christianity as it's been presented, it's a completely different understanding.
Yeah.
Because Christianity, what people are practicing is imperialistic Christianity. It's the Christianity that was used to oppress, suppress, and abdicate people of their power. Yeah. It's not the Coptic Christianity, or there's a book called, I forget, it was written by two women, but it basically talks about what Christianity was before Bloody Friday, and how women were actually very revered in Christianity and all the balance and everything like that. If I find the book, if I find my phone, I'll say it out loud. Okay. And the reality is, for any tradition that you go to, particularly with African belief systems, they are religions. It's, as Rissy said, it's a system. You're not going from, lockdown to freewheeling. There's levels to this shit. There's rules to this shit. And the best thing that anyone can do, and I'll speak from my own journey, because I literally lived in Asia on and off for 3 years. And I did not realize it until after the fact, but I was going through an initiation of my own where I literally spent 3 years challenging every fucking belief that I had, right, to see what is it that do I actually believe. I understand this system, I understand that system. I looked at, Buddhism, which is not a religion, but a way of life, a practice. I've looked at this, I've looked at that. Am I, I'm Ghanaian American, first generation. Am I called to initiate into something? My guides are very clear. This lifetime, you're not initiating into anything, because you're here to be at communion and be at one. You're not here to be in any religion, in any system. I'm like, oh, but
same here. Same here.
But they were very clear. And in order that, I call it, doing your inner liberation work. And I'm working on a journal about that. But you having to go within and figure out, what is my heart saying? Who am I in connection with? My creator? And do I have attunement? And from there, when you understand where your boundaries end and other people's boundaries begin, when you get to that point is when you can start to say, okay, spirit, show me what direction I need to go for my belief system, because some people do very well with religion.
Mhm.
Some people do very well with belief systems. But part of that is you have to know what your soul mission is for this lifetime and what you came here to do and how you came here to do it. Your soul mission may be, I need to be a devotee of Christ.
Yeah.
And I need to, everything is about embodiment. So I need to embody what it looks like to be a fully devoted to Christ and showing people what a Christ walk looks like. I need to be fully devoted to a practice of chanting and meditation to show people how to come to oneness. I need to be a devotee of what it looks like to go back to where your journey of going home.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a yogi. I have a 200 hour. I went to Thailand and I did a dual program with a Thai teacher and an Indian teacher. And I'm going to tell you, people getting shorted in the West, you know, because there was so much depth. And I was very purposeful. And when I went to go do this training, where I was not going to, outside of Dana with Spiritual Essence Yoga, and I was very particular about studying with her. I said, when I do the longer training, if I can't do it with Dana, I'm going to the source. Because there is a lot of nuance that we miss, because English is not a complete language. There is so much nuance that we miss when you get into learning about systems in the native language. There's so much context, so much richness in the beauty of understanding the mother tongue, right? Which is why, a lot of us first generations, we struggle a little bit with identity, because when you came here in the 70s and 80s and the 60s, it was about acculturation. They purposely said, don't let your kids speak the language at home because they're going to get confused, make them speak English. Well, that creates separation. So, I think going back to your original question, where does an African-American woman start? You come home to yourself. And that's going to be true for everybody.
Right.
You come home to yourself. You come home to your relationship with the creator of your understanding. I'm very specific about that phrase.
Right.
And from there, when you know where you end and other people begin and vice versa, you can rest assured that whatever journey you're guided to go on, it is the journey that is here for you to uphold your soul's mission, because ain't no one got time to be coming back to this earth 300 times to get the lesson.
Right. Isa is saying, speak on her life. And Amina is saying she feels the same about her life. The people keep trying to enroll her and she ain't accepted the call yet. And I agree, because it's the same for me. Like, I left the certain spiritual system and then I had to figure out who I was. And that compass started to attune, like it started to align, and I could start to feel in my belly and in my gut. My gut always spoke to me. I just didn't listen. I would be balled up on the floor, but I would still be trying to do whatever. So once I stopped that, and my trip to Asia, it was just 2 weeks. I just decided to go on Monday. On Friday, I was on a plane. Evelyn introduced me to some people, but outside of me hanging with those people for a few days, I was on my own. And I got plane tickets based on what I felt like that specific day. And it helped me to trust myself, because I'd always given my power away for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And so
but that's the problem with a lot of these religions, is that they force you to outsource your instincts.
Yeah.
Because they have this book that says, okay, you do all of these things, and this is how you do it. This is what you say when you do it, and this is how it's done, and you keep doing it. And so there isn't a way for you to actually ask yourself, what do I believe? So that journey is about, reclaiming, it's like, this is why COVID is amazing. When you think about how much we outsource in terms of our food being cooked, in terms of our hair getting done, in terms of our clothes being washed, or whatever it is that you're doing, you are now being forced to some of us have reacquainted ourselves with our own manicures and looking at our hands, and we're doing our own hair, and we're doing our own feet, and we're reacquainting ourselves with our bodies in a way that we haven't done because it wasn't safe to do otherwise. Yeah. But that's the whole point, I think, of a spiritual practice, is that you reacquaint yourself with your spirit and you tune into the creator of your understanding. Because otherwise, it's just outsourcing. Yeah. Somebody says, do this. I mean, I literally I had a student once who, her father died. Well, he was in Trinidad. Her father died and she was very close to her father. Her father died. She had to take 2 weeks off to go home to bury him. When she came back, she was distraught. And I asked her, I said, and I normally try not to read people at school because it's just like, I'm already the hippie weird chick anyway, but it's a bit much. And so after class, she was very upset because she could not figure out why she couldn't get over it. I was like, your father just died like 3 weeks ago. And she's like, da da da. And her father came through, and I was like, look, I'm not trying to scare you, but your father says, just talk to him. And she was like, how do you know? I was like, don't ask me how I know. Just talk to him. Just have a conversation with him. He's with you. A week and a half later, she disappears for a week and a half. She comes back, and she comes back with a gift. And she just says, I want to thank you. You were the first person who actually, her people had her to believe that her father was dead, and that was it, and that she should let it go. Like, it sucks, it's sad, but move on. And she had no way of working through all of this stuff because no one gave her permission to. And me simply saying, just go talk to your father. Light a candle, put his picture up, put a cup of water, and just talk to him when you feel like it. She felt so much better. The idea that you need permission to commune with your ancestors, that thing hurt my feelings because she really was beating herself up because she couldn't figure out a way to get over it because the religion or the practices they were part of, it was like, people die, it's just part of life, get over it. Right. I'm like, come on. Right. So we have to, part of this practice is about, we got to stop outsourcing these things. We got to trust our instincts, and we have to be okay with the noise, because the noise is part of the process. You have to figure out, okay, it's like you're fine tuning the radio station to figure out what signal is yours. And people don't like noise, so they just don't turn the radio on. And now we're saying, turn the radio on, get through that static, and figure out what station is your station, right, and go from there.
Right. It's interesting. I think the earlier you learn this, the better.
Absolutely.
And so the Sankofa Homeschool Collective, I'm teaching a class in the fall about you being the original technology, because those students are netizens. They are citizens of the net. They were born with the internet, and they have given all of their power into this into this phone. Right. Or into this box, into this technology. So what I'm teaching them is what I learned late, but I learned it. I learned in my time. I'm not going to say late. I learned in my time that I have my own guidance system, my own GPS system. All of my senses are here. And when I can tune into them and tap into them, they will take me where I'm supposed to go, regardless of the noise. Right. And so I've been practicing that over the years, and it has served me well. Now, it has been scary. Yes. There has been some snotty moments. There has been some cut off the hair moments, but it all lends to me having peace, right, and being going in the right direction. So I'm excited about that opportunity to share with those kids. We're going to start them at 11. Nice. Because the earlier you know that, even if it's just a seed plant and they're not paying any attention, there's going to be something that they're going to remember maybe when it's time to go to college or whatever. So I'm grateful for that opportunity.
And the reality is that, we're hustling backwards, even when it comes back to the manifestation thing, because oftentimes we're asking for things and praying for things, trying to get things because we're acting in a deficit. We are acting out of, I don't have it and I need it. And I think what's been evident in my own life, or what I have noticed, is that when I get into some sort of alignment, even if it's 5 minutes or whatever, that I can actually ask for what I need from a truly functional place. And I recently came to this understanding that abundance is not accumulated, it's lived. And there's this shift in perspective that happens then, where now I'm not out here, praying for things to fill me up or to fill some gap that I think I have, but really aligning to, okay, what is my soul's mission? What did I come here to do? And what are the resources and the tools that I need to get that done, and to also enjoy this life and to have some level of embodiment, and to really have that abundance and prosperity that comes through alignment, and not through this sense of manifesting in the deficit. It's like, what does it look like to manifest for your highest good, rather than manifesting from the deficit in a system called capitalism, which is rooted in scarcity. Mm-hmm. You show me someone who has accumulated a lot of money, I'm going to show you somebody who is driven by scarcity. It's not a virtue to have a whole bunch of wealth. There's nothing wrong with it. But when someone gets a lot of wealth, what's the number one thing that they're focused on? Not losing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So we have lots of, so Rose Quartz Teresi is saying that you had a similar talk with her after her mom died and that helped. So she wanted to thank you for that.
Hey, Safi.
And Cha-Cha Dominguez says I'm uncovering me in my journey of faith. I have had a lot of religious foundation, aka dogma, and now I'm looking at Creator God through her eyes and through what moves her spirit and letting go of what the pastor says, because now she's seeing what the pastor said is based on his experience. And that's true. Like, everybody comes from a different lens. Everybody has a different experience. And so I've been very clear, because when I was in my other spiritual system, they were very, it was black and white. You either with this or you're going to die. Right. You're going to burn. And so I had to remove myself from that mindset of judging other people for what they're doing. No, if that works for you, then that works for you. But like Evelyn said, being clear on where I begin and where another person, and where I end and where another person begins, and just letting that be, because everybody's on their own path. Everybody's awakening at a different time. And I laughed with Rissy a few times before. It was like, I had no clue. I just come to the red tent, and Rissy had the sage going and all these different things, and they pulling cards and whatever. And I was like, I don't understand this. I was taught it was wrong. So I removed myself from the situation. And, I was like, well, she didn't side eye me. She still accepted me when I came the next time, and when I came the next time, and when I came to her house. Like, I was interested in learning. And once I realized that I wasn't going to hell, that I was, participating, then I realized that that was okay for me. But honestly, I didn't even say anything for 2 years. I went on my own, the beginning of my awakening, for 2 years without even telling my best friend, who was my sister. Mm-hmm. And it was so painful, and it was so lonely, and it was me unlearning all these things, and then being pissed off, and then also feeling sorry for my grandparents, because my grandmother, she would strangle me in all these things. Like, I couldn't do half the things that I wanted to do because my grandmother said whatever. And though she was very loving and everything, I felt bad that she lived her life so restricted. I'm pretty sure there were things that she wanted to do, but she couldn't because the church said that it was not right. So, everybody's on their own. And just so everybody who's watching this and whoever watches it later, it's not to demonize anybody's situation. Like Evelyn, this is not my lifetime to be in any system, because I definitely felt like I was interested in some, but my gut was like, not right now, or not, this is not for you. Your job now is to attune in yourself, because I threw myself away for so many years. It was time for me to embrace myself and to really understand what worked for me.
Right. I mean, the greatest healing, particularly for what's going on now with the people who identify as Black, the collective of Black people, the greatest healing and shift to white supremacy, I hold and I believe, and what I've seen is when we shift the lens from which we view ourselves, from one of viewing ourselves from the oppressor's lens, to one of viewing ourselves through the lens of the creator. When you view yourself through the lens of that which made you, a lot of stuff, I don't want to say it becomes not relevant, but a lot of stuff just don't hit the same.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so if you want a pinpoint for where to start your journey, be honest about the lens through which you're viewing yourself. I had one of my travel friends that I met in Thailand passed away a couple of months ago. Black woman, and I'm pretty sure she went out in her own way. And I remember, I was, doing my virtual, ethereal goodbyes or whatever. And she came rolling through in spirit, and she was just like, "You are a beautiful, beautiful soul. And I just want to let you to know, to always remind you to you know, you have to view yourself through the lens of God. Those are her direct words to me. You know, you don't have to struggle the way that you struggle with things. When you view yourself through the lens of God, all things become peace. And, you know, I've sat with that, and that created a shift.
Well, you just blessed me, because that's been my lesson for the last 2 weeks. Every morning when I wake up, I have to, like, all the craziness that's going on, I always have to center myself into my God self. And, like, you know, that is what is that when I'm in my God self, I'm closest to peace, and I'm closest to my real self, and the outside noise, you know, is diminished, and then I'm able to connect and do the things that I need to do. So it's only been 2 weeks, that specific thing that you're talking about. So that's just a confirmation for me. Right. And then I guess it's for other people too. Isa saying, man, I didn't know how much I needed this today. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is how you do your activism. This is the space and the lens from which you want to change systems and do your activism.
Yeah.
From a centered whole being place, not from your wounded self, from your wise self.
Right. And even for me, the shift comes in me not saying white supremacy. I say white insecurity. That even feels better for me, because it's so insecure that they act like, that's why they act like that and act so crazy, because they're insecure. There's nothing supreme about people who behave the way that they do. So even for me, that has been a great shift. Now, this is Amina. She's saying she's making it rain for y'all. So this is for everybody. I have seen so many hearts and thumbs up and love. You know, if you've been a part of the Sanctuary Radio show, at least the summer school session, you know that we always want you to reciprocate. You know, if you've gotten anything out of it, I have put Evelyn and Kat's Cash App right in here. Please send something to them, whatever it is that you would like, but please send them something, because I know that it has blessed many of you just from the comments in the share. I see 97 hearts and likes. So hearts are nice, but hearts don't get Starbucks, and hearts don't pay for anything else. So please just consider it. And then
I need hair grease.
Yeah, girl, a little shea butter. You know,
I gotta restore my little edges with my rosemary oil. Damn.
Yeah. So please, it's all right here in the thing. Rissy's is the $ Little So-So, and Evelyn's
Lilsosocash. I'm sorry, I messed that up.
Oh, so Lilsosocash.
My bad.
Okay. And then Evelyn's is eviemysticgenius. So, and then mine is Wendi30, the $ Wendi Wendi30. So we appreciate it. And then also, thanks to Rissy, it was more confirmation. This whole situation has been, this whole episode and producing it and putting it together has been a blessing, because everybody keeps saying get on Patreon. So I finally got on Patreon. So I am Awaken and Heal on Patreon. And so we're going to step into this Awaken and Heal revolution on Patreon. And so that's where we are going to have the second part of this conversation, just a few more minutes on the Karen situation. Because I was awakened to some bullshit on this whole Karen situation, where people are feeling like they own the rights to Karenism. And I say, you can have it. Then I would have saved $15,000 on a lawyer getting out of jail on them Karens. And the Miss Ann situation, my mother used to call bougie ass chicks Miss Ann from when I was 1 in 1971. So it's unfortunate that people, we think we always got to worry about the Karens, but sometimes the Keishas be trying to come at you too. So you always like trying to, bob and weave, and I don't have time for it. I was in the woods. That's where I stay. I stay in the woods. I just happened to come out the woods and saw the bullshit. So I was just like, I can't deal. So we will have that conversation on Patreon.
Can I come to the woods?
Would you say, Evelyn?
Can I come to the woods too?
Yeah, girl, come to the woods. I'll be in there every day. So thank you.
This was delightful. I totally
was.
Thank you. And so what Amina said, and this is what I want to end with, and then we'll stay on and have our conversation. If you want to join on Patreon, you can. I have an inaugural level. And it's going to be you'll be able to see the rest of the video and talk about the Karen situation. And then I also have another level where you can get a book and I'll sign it and send it to you. Rissy told me that. I did it in an hour and figured it out. And so here we go. Let's do it. And the last thing that Amina said was, I need this to be a live forum, a panel. She needs more. She has so many things to say. Oh my God, this was so rich. She
Peep game. Amina needs to be on the panel.
Right.
Amina,
So,
Adama too.
yes.
Mhm.
Amina, Adama. There you go. Boom, boom. The
I'll
A.
moderate and y'all can go for it because I love it. So we will figure that out if you guys want to. But
down.
thank you all for joining us here on Facebook Live. We're going to end this. We're going to stay on, ladies, for a few. And thank you again. This is the Sanctuary Radio Show Summer School. We still have a few more episodes coming up. We're going to have how to grow your own food. Next week is going to be really cool. We're talking to Manifest Ra and Emmanuel Taylor about healing for men.
Oh, wow.
Because it's always the women. We're always talking about how we can support ourselves. We used to be in the red tent from back in the day. So, but the brothers are healing too. And there are some brothers who never even considered that they needed this healing. So I'll have them on. And then I'm also going to have on Sydney and Crew, my daughter, who's a 17-year-old rising senior. I'm going to have her on with some of my other family members who are either going into college as a freshman this year or who are class of 2020, and then my daughter who's class of 2021, and have them talk about how they are managing the emotions of not having this rite of passage that we call high school graduation, prom, basketball, football games, and what does it look like, how they get their information, TikTok, and how they are doing their part in the revolution. So that's going to be in a few weeks too. So please stay tuned for the Sanctuary Radio Show. Catch any of the 60 episodes live on wendycherry.com/radio show. And I will see you in the next time in the Sanctuary. Peace.
Hi, thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.